Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here. Approval of minutes for the regular meeting of September 6, 2016. Any additions or corrections? If not, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 6, 2016.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Approval of manifest 2016-17, the amount of $594,028.28. Any questions? Mr. Mangini?
Yeah, one, I think I know the answer to it, but I gotta ask to make sure. Page 2, right at the bottom of Public Works, Bilski Enterprises, a rental of a vibratory roller. I'm assuming that's a piece of equipment to pack down the tennis court, the gravel or the sand underneath it before they...
I
It
don't
looks like
think
it's
for
cut
the
off.
tennis
It
court.
says new TENNI. I'm assuming that's
They
tennis.
had one up there.
Did they have one up there?
Yeah, it's a
I don't-
small one like Moran's got.
They probably got it from Bilski.
Okay.
Oh, I know what they were packing out
Packing it out.
the trail. That
Oh,
there's
the
a-
trail.
There's a ADA path that goes from the parking area around. That's what they were compacting. You're right.
Okay,
Lee,
and
what page was that on?
page 2, right on the bottom of the last item on the general fund. Starts off at rental lease.
Oh, okay, I was looking at the bottom of the page.
On page 4, under cable television, third item from the bottom, CCI Systems FCC proofs testing, $3,400. Is that yearly? I'm assuming that's a yearly.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to do those proof tests.
Okay, and I got one other item here. Let's see. On page 5, halfway down, transmission distribution, border states electric supply, URN, whatever that stands for, the campgrounds, $3,900 with campgrounds. We getting reimbursed for that from the fairgrounds? That's only campground, I know.
Right, that would be the fairgrounds, and I'd have to double check on that,
Oh, okay.
the reimbursement.
And then on page 3, again halfway down, I hope this is a misprint, Lotham's Building Center, 8 4-inch lag bolts, MER project, $392
Yeah, I'm
for
sure
8
that's,
4-inch lag bolts?
no, I'm sure that there's
Wow.
a number of items on that.
Okay, and while we're on that subject, I would like the total cost that we've sunk into the MER since we've had to start redoing it with the materials.
Talking about the boardwalk?
Yeah, the
Okay.
boardwalk, with the materials and labor.
Okay.
If you can come up with that figure for the next meeting. That's all I have.
Mr. Babalani?
I got a couple, Doc. Under the police side, Ray, the police car was, is that been delivered? I see it's $24,538.
It's been delivered,
And then
and
the
now
graphics.
it's into striping and putting the radios in.
I thought the total cost for us was $22,000.
Well, we pay and get reimbursed, don't we?
We have to pay everything in full, and then, once we have all the bills paid, we submit it to RD, and they reimburse us the grant.
Okay, okay. Down a little further on the same page, the Public Works. Fuel, it says fuel delivery. I'm taking it, it's diesel to the DPW. $1,333. There's one for $661 and one for $672.
Okay.
I take it that's diesel, but I see them gassing up or fueling up with diesel at the VP, so I'm kind of confused. If we have fuel at the shop, why are we going to BP for diesel fuel? It says fuel and not gas, but I know I see the trucks over there fueling up.
Could be the equipment. I'll have to double check on it.
Next page here, international truck repair under the general fund, third from the bottom, inspection of a truck for $306.56. I believe we did that, we used to do that in-house.
Yeah, with his workload, he's sending some of the DOT inspection work out.
Well, that I don't understand because we have a previous mechanic that still works for the city that has a pay increase on his pay for mechanical skills.
We'll have to talk to Rick about how he's scheduling his DOT.
And if he still has that, I don't believe this individual is too busy to do this inspection. He's already getting paid for that. Page 3. Oh, I had the same one Lee had with the bolts. Down on the bottom, under the DDA, the DEQ wetland permits for the mirror, how is that going? And this total here is $700+ dollars. If we purchase that, are these fees going to come off of the purchase price? Because we put in for the permits and we do not own the property yet.
No, that's not the agreement at this point.
Okay. I don't believe that that's a real good agreement, but it is what it is. Let me see what I got.
I would
That's
recommend
what I
maybe
got.
we have that as an item come to the DDA, we'll let the board,
I know we talked about that when we talked about land exchange down at the Planning Commission.
yeah.
That's all I had, Doc.
Ms. Brew?
I have nothing.
Mr. Pop?
I have nothing.
I have no other questions. With that, we need a motion to approve the agenda, or the manifest.
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2016-17 in the amount of $320,594.28.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
If anybody in the audience likes to ask any questions on any agenda item or the preceding business, now would be the time. Any other questions should be held until the end of the meeting. If not, we'll proceed with appointments and presentations.
Bruce is here for a meet and hunt, give us a water sewer project update.
Okay, hooray, hooray. The long-awaited going to bids with the projects has arrived about a week ago. You will see in tomorrow's paper of the Daily News the official bid advertisement, which we're required to put in the paper. Actually, the plans and specs are out on the street, kind of as we speak. Most of the contractors now use a process called Quest, where they actually go on and they get all this stuff electronically, majority of them. They can request a hard copy. So, in essence, we are out to bids. A couple key dates I want to tell you about. We always, for projects of this size, we have pre-bid meetings so that the contractors can come in, hopefully, and have had time to at least glance at the documents and see if they have any questions. We cover certain things about the process. The wastewater treatment plant is going to be on the 28th. That's next Wednesday at 1 o'clock here. I'm not sure, downstairs probably, right?
Upstairs, yeah.
And the water sewer project is the next day at 10 o'clock in the morning on the 29th. Anybody that, from the council, that could attend those, I think it would be good. We discussed some things. It would help keep you in the loop a little bit. It's not that important that everybody, would want to, but those of you that would have the time, I certainly invite you to be there. The bid openings for both projects are going to happen on Wednesday, the 19th, wastewater treatment plant at 2 o'clock, water sewer project at 3 o'clock. Unless for some reason we run into some things and have to extend the bid date. The minutes of the pre-bid meeting will be sent out by addendum and will be officially part of the contract documents. So, any questions on that? You know, once we open bids, then you will have numbers. We'll see where we're at. See what we have to consider, if anything. I did take a look at cost estimating on projects like this, particular underground projects, is really, really tough. And I'm going to tell you what just happened over in Bessemer to kind of have this hit home a little bit. The open bids on a supposedly engineer estimate, $10.2 million job, water, sewer, streets. The high bidder was 9.4. And then there were 6 bidders, and they went down. 8.9, 8.7, 8.6, 6.2, and 5.3. Now you ask yourself, for a set of documents that are complete, I mean, how can anybody on a $10.2 million estimated project bid 5.3? And I haven't got the faintest idea. Okay, it's a local contractor, Rootsela Concrete Construction. I don't know who, I don't think they've awarded. But that shows you the kind of challenge we have when we're trying to estimate a project. Now, I actually looked again quickly, but we have a job in Florence, a smaller job. James Peterson's Sons, who bids a lot of work in this area, has done work for the city, tried to use some numbers, did averages, did the low bidders numbers, did a lot of things. And I came up with, on the water side, about $75,000, $80,000 over the numbers that were in the funding application, and on the sewer side it was about 200. Now, there's 3 things that are part of that. One, the costs for those projects were mostly assembled in 2007 to 2009, finalized but not changed a great deal in 2011. That's 5 years ago. The city, you know, in the course of putting together the design, the city did add some things. You remember discussions about adding some things. We had an amendment to our engineering agreement for some things the city wanted to add. On the water side, one thing that happened is that, you know, normally, when we've always done this, most consulting engineers have done this, we typically see somewhere about a 6-foot cover on water mains, or 6.5. And because of those tremendous freezing problems we had not too many years ago, the city, you know, directed us to put 7.5 feet of cover in the specs. That's 1.5 foot more than I assumed when I was throwing, you know, darts at the cost per foot of stuff. You know, we don't have any quantities when we put these preliminary costs together. So we're trying to figure out what you use for a cost per foot of sewer. We don't know at that time how many manholes, how many valves, how about anything. And those costs that we try to use, you know, were based on 6 foot of cover. So at 7.5, that's an extra 1.5 foot of excavating, and that does mean dollars and cents. So I only tell you that just to brace you, you know, if we are over budget when we take bids, those are the reasons why. We're at a very good time. We couldn't be at a better time. We're in the fall for next year's work. A couple of the contractors, I know from talking to them, didn't hit the Bessemer thing too hard because they were looking at Norway coming up. And they do more work here. Baco was one. They're local. They would much rather do a project here than over there. So I'm thinking we're going to get some good numbers. That doesn't mean that we won't still be over the funding numbers that we have. So when we open bids, we'll see where we're at, and if we are over on any of the projects, we'll have to start looking at what things we don't do. And that's a process you have to go through. So I mentioned to you before, I will now again real quickly, and then I'll see if anybody has any questions, but we do not have to accept the low bid. Even though there's federal money, we do not have to accept the low bid. Now, you can't just do that without some documentation as to why not. And the two big things you look for are experience in doing projects of this size and reputation. And I have to write a letter of recommendation to the council. If there are any issues that I feel need to be discussed, we will discuss them before I do that. But the way it works is I have to give input to probably Steve Tinty, who's acting as a city attorney on these projects, and he writes a letter to RD. And I've only, in my whole career, not recommended award to low bidder twice, and one was an RD project. And after we were done, and it was quite a debate. It was a township over in East End, and there was quite a debate about that because the low guy was local, and we didn't give it to him. And after about halfway through the project, the people that thought we should give it to him admitted that probably was a good thing we didn't. So we'll see what happens. We'll see who the low guys are. We'll see what the numbers are.
The low guys in the other project, like the bottom four, acceptable or not? You don't, I know you can't name names, but are they acceptable? Yes or no?
I have not worked with both the low bidder and the second low bidder. But in talking to some other people, I would be, just based on that, okay, alone, I would be a little skeptical of the low bidder. The second low bidder, who I've never had bid any projects I've been on, they're from northern Wisconsin somewhere. They seem to be okay. If I don't know someone, I do a lot of checking. Okay, I call consulting engineers, I call communities where they've worked. I know a lot of the guys that bid around here. That project, based on what I could garner, should have maybe been around the 8.6 number, okay, which is like $1.5 million below the engineer's estimate, but those numbers are so hard to work with. But we had three there pretty close. You had like an 8.6 and an 8.7, and I'm rounding, and an 8.9. Okay, and I forget all six. I'm trying to think who the other ones are. I know them. I know all the rest of them. I haven't worked with some of them in a long time, but there's some contractors that I would have no problem with recommending award to. There are some, and we can see some from the valley. Okay, we've had people bid from down in the Green Bay, Appleton area, and there are some that I really would have a problem with, because remember, we are trying to be partners in this thing. If you don't have a contractor that does a good job of trying to be a partner, it's a real issue.
You think the low bottom bidders there were from that area
They
where
are.
the project was?
The low was.
The low was?
Is local. But there are stories. A contractor that doesn't have a good reputation, you can't hide that. There are some contractors that are, they end up battling on every project. They come in low. It's a very precarious game, these underground guys. I mean, you got to get the work. You can't make money if you don't get jobs. And it's very, very competitive. And there's a lot of unknowns that you can run into, weather being one that you can't predict. And guys assume, some of these contractors assume how much footage they're going to make every day when they start looking at the time, and if their crews can't do that, then they get in trouble. And if contractor gets in trouble, then they want to find ways to get out of trouble, and you're posed for a fight. And I told you before, the only two goals that you should have going in is, one, good quality project that doesn't leave you with problems after it's done, and number two, don't end up in court. And you never hardly end up in court. You end up in a contest, a legal contest that usually doesn't end up in a trial or even a bench trial. Either it doesn't even sometimes go to formal arbitration. It usually gets into the legal process, and Grant surely can talk to you about all of this. There's there's interrogatories and depositions if it goes that far, and in the end, you always usually somehow compromise, or the judge sends it to, what's it called, I forgot?
Case evaluation.
Case evaluation, yeah, I've been there. And very seldom does it go to the trial thing. So my opinion is, and Grant can tell you if he agrees or not, is you always try to get good partners to start with. You try to enhance the relationship building, that you're all in this together. You try to work things out, and when you can't really come to agreement, you look at a compromise of some sort. I mean, my job is to be fair. My professional job is to be fair with the contractors and owners. And whoever puts the first row of bricks on the fence goes up. So I keep preaching this. That's what I'm going to keep preaching, because we want to get through these jobs. Everybody be happy as you can be. We want the contractor to make money. That's why they're there. So, any questions about what's happening? So if you can make those meetings on the 28th, any of you, it'll be good for you to sit in. So, we'll see what happens. The 19th will tell us a lot.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go on to the MML Liability and Property Pool Board of Directors. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, this is an annual activity that the council reviews at this time of year. We're a member of the MML's board, or the Liability and Property Pool. That's where we get our insurances through, and there's a board of directors that every year they send, because we're actually members, we're not just clients, and so it's up to us to review candidates to sit on that board. This year they have 2 candidates for the board. There's a nominating committee that puts forward, they review applications and requests, and they put forward to all its members their recommendation. So their recommendation is the 2 candidates that I have for you in the packet. And I believe they're both incumbents, so.
One's from the UP. One's from the Northern Lower Michigan.
Northern Lower.
I thought one was from Menominee.
One from Nominee.
Oh, Menominee, yeah. Well, Penny was from the UP, but then she moved down to Kansas City. So yeah, so we have Gene Stegeman as the mayor of Menominee, and Penny Hill as the assistant manager in Traverse City.
Anybody have any questions or thoughts? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve the 2 candidates.
I'll make the motion that the 2 candidates proposed by the MML's nominating committee for the MML Liability and Property Pool Board of Directors be endorsed by the City of Norway City Council.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Approval Sewer Department CSO Building Roof Replacement. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, the CSO building this past year, and through budget, they recognized that they needed to put a new roof on that CSO, on that building. It has a rubber roof. On inspection of the rubber roof, it wasn't just a situation of repairing it, it needs to be replaced. We did have monies in the budget, $8,000 appropriated for the roof replacement, but the low responsive bidder from Markel was at $13,980. I did go back with the superintendent. We looked at his budget, and this would be under maintenance and repair. So we looked through his maintenance and repair budget, and there was sufficient amount of room for him to defer some of the requested items to come up with the additional $6,000 that he'll need in order to meet the budget. So we're recommending that, we're requesting council that they approve Markel to replace the rubber roof for price not to exceed $13,980.
Any idea how long that roof's been on there, Ray? I
Gosh,
thought they
a long
did some
time, I bet.
repairs. I thought they did. Oh, 78, okay. Yeah. What's that?
Once
Yeah,
those rubber
'cause-
roofs go, they start going.
Yeah, because I remember last time I was sitting here that there was some work done. Has anybody looked at, that's a flat roof, has anybody looked at trussing that roof and putting a metal roof on? Because like you said, every 3 years, you have maintenance on these roofs. I know it would be a little bit pricey, but you would be done for a long time.
Mark, with the technology today, you really don't have to repair everything. They last quite a while. I think the original one lasted quite a while before it needed any work at all. So you're not out there repairing things.
I see on the bid here, Lake State was high, but they had a 15-year material warranty, but I didn't see any type of warranty for the other one, Markel. I
I'm
mean,
not
what's
familiar
the-
with whether what the specifics are on the warranty. I can just assume that the warranties are pretty similar. I mean, they,
Don't assume anything.
No.
I'd like
Kurt,
to
did
know
you-
what
do you
their
ever-
warranty is.
yeah. We did advertise, but these are the two that put in. I mean, we could table it and I could find out specifically on that.
Normally, if you're doing a project that has a set of specs, there's normally warranty requirements, and they warranty those roofs quite a while. And I wouldn't be surprised if Markel would be willing to do that too, but he wasn't asked if I would provide it.
If we decide to go with it, we could put that into motion, right?
Yes, you could do that.
Providing that it has the 15-year warranty.
Yes. You could make that as part of your 15 or better.
15 or better, yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
what made me a little nervous here, somewhere along the line, I saw where it said a 1-ply, where the other one, they're going with that 1/2-inch density board. Someplace in Markel's, it was 1-ply. How thick the 1-ply is, I have no idea. But I sure would like to see a warranty on it. Like even the high bidder got a 5-year, what was it?
Craftsmanship.
Yeah, craftsmanship for 5 years, yeah. And the manufacturer will provide the 15 years, so I really would like to know for sure before I let that out.
So do you want to table it until we know, or do you want to go ahead with the motion?
Is it that important where it has to be done right now, or can we set this off for the next meeting until we get the rest of that information? I mean, when do they plan on doing it if they get the bid? Is it,
I think it's still a
Like
couple weeks
now?
before he's going to do it. I think you could hold it off for a couple weeks.
Yeah, we should make sure that's apples and apples. Does anyone know why that our estimate was so low?
I don't. I mean, that's supervisor put together the estimates and put them into the budget, so.
It was just originally a repair job. That's what we thought it needed, but after a couple of the contractors went up and looked at it, it was far worse than what we thought.
But still, the estimate to replace it was 8,000, and it turns out it's almost 14,000, so
Repair job was $8,000.
oh,
He estimated $8,000 for the repair.
oh,
So
okay.
how was it advertised? Was it advertised
As
for
a
repairing or
replacement.
for
No, a replacement.
replacement?
Yeah, it was advertised as a replacement.
So it was an estimate, 8,000 was a repair, and 14,000 is the replacement, so that makes sense, okay.
Yeah, and that's why I went back with Bob, and we looked at his 861 budget, and he did we found areas that he could defer in order to make up that number.
Do we need a motion to defer this till the next meeting, or? we just
I
table it?
guess I would make a motion, Doc, that we approve the Markel Company rubber roof on the waste building not to exceed $13,980, providing that the craftsman warranty was 5 years and the material warranty was 15.
Is there a second to that?
I'll support that.
Mr. Pop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menigini.
Yes.
Next, Sturgeon Falls Hydroelectric Unit Number 3, change order number 3. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular item came up once we moved forward with some shop repairs, replacements of some parts, material on unit number 3, and came down to the shop, and Mr. Kaiser showed me he was concerned about the shaft. The shaft has been in since the 80s when they put the vertical unit in, and he was just showing me the pitting and some of the corrosion, on the shaft itself. Keyway, and I mean, he made it clear that he could clean it up and do a bunch of work on it, but putting all new couplings, all new collars on the shaft, and we didn't do a non-destructive, we didn't x-ray it or do any kind of a analysis on it for cracking. He just thought with the age and the way it looked that we might want to consider just replacing the shaft. Provided you with some of the pictures of that, as well as, he gave me the estimate, for that shaft replacement. So the total for the shaft, to upgrade the shaft, is $5,145.57. That would bring the total repair work for unit number 3 up to $12,700.57. That would be the shop portion of the repair work. So, based on putting all new parts on it and doing all that work, the question is to invest the $5,000 and just put a new shaft on that unit.
Is this the last of the parts that need to be inspected, so?
Yeah, because what we did, we pulled, when we went in for the gates, this happens every time you open something up. I mean, you go in and you see cracking, you see different things. It's been, it's a pretty violent process. And so, went in, pulled, realized we needed new couplings. In fact, he showed you the pictures. There's a bent flange on the coupling. There's, you see the corrosion. So we just decided that we needed to redo all of that. We started looking at the shaft, and the keyways are worn. The shaft from top to bottom is severely pitted. Yeah, I mean, you can clean all that up, but then we'd have to do a complete examination. So those are the parts. There's no other parts on this section. All the gates were redone not too long ago, so we just put it back in place and tighten up those gates, and then we should be pretty good.
Did you go down and inspect it yourself, or
Yeah.
did you just get the pictures?
No, I went down and looked at it myself, and then I had Tim go down and look at it, and kind of both came to the same conclusion that it just seemed like, with the amount of pitting that was on it, because once you clean it all up, then you still have to go through and either mag it or PT it or do something to, find out if there's any additional cracking. Because that material, once you start grinding on it and cleaning it up, you never know if you end up start chasing cracks.
Right.
So it's probably not a total of 5145 additional, because you still had to do the checking for cracks on it, so.
So they would have to do all of it.
Yeah, so what I mean is that, 2,000 of that 5,100 might have been absorbed checking the old shaft for cracks.
Yeah, I've done that work personally. I mean, it takes a
Yeah.
while. You have to clean it all up. You
Oh,
have to get it down to the metal, and then that testing. I mean, you go from one end to the other. So
Well, it lasted over 30 years, and it's still pretty decent shape, but do they have new materials for that now, or would it be the same steel for that shaft that they had back in the 80s?
well, he did thicken up the thickened up the couplings. Yeah, so it's the same material. It's roughly the same material, but like you said, it lasted the 30 years.
Well, I just wondered, 30 years later, maybe there was something else that was a little
Well, you
better
notice in the
material.
picture there's some cracking that you can visibly see, and then of course the deformation on some of the collars on the lip. So what he did was we stiffened that up. We thickened it up, so that extra thickness will help.
Well, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we approve FMR, the contract of changing out number 3, the work order, or excuse me, the shaft on number 3, change order number 1, at a price of $51.45 and 57 cents shop rate, and not to exceed $12,757.
Support.
Is that correct? Because he said change order number 1.
Yeah, this is change order number 1 for the shop work on unit number 3.
And here it says change order number 3, that's what I was asking.
Well, that's
Unit number 3.
unit number 3, yeah. No, it does say 3.
It does say change order number.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm just asking to make sure it's clear.
just on the shop work, yeah. Keep that straight.
Okay, Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Hydro and Water System Automation LLC and HMI Support. Mr. Anderson.
All right, this next item, last year, we brought to council a request to have LNS handle our inductive software, inductive automation software, maintenance, and PLC maintenance, HMI support for both our water and electric automation. And that project, or that approval, was actually for $30,000 a year on a 5-year contract. There's very few at the time, especially there were very few people that we could find that would be able to handle that kind of work. And so we just felt at that point that we needed to have somebody here or on the queue, so to speak, in case something happened. Case in point, on Friday, we got hit by lightning. The unit went down, we lost communications. We were running for a while in manual mode, but we assembled our team and we got it back communicating, and we're still working on that, but with the amount of communications and with that automation, you can't afford to be out for too long. This past year, a fellow out of Iron Mountain stopped in, and he started his own company, FDS Electric, and he's an engineer. He worked in the industry for a while and then decided to start his own company, reaching out to customers like us to see if there was a fit. What I did was I started having him communicate with not only our network engineer but also with LNS to see if there was something we could do. One of the problems we have with our contract with LNS is that they're over in Schofield, Wisconsin. They have to drive over. There's a period of time to get them over here. There's a travel. That's all built into the contract. And so, Jesse is right here in Iron Mountain. He's very accessible, and he agreed that he would be willing to, on his own dime, learn or come up to speed with what we have. So he's been working with us on that. He's just coming up to speed. And he actually has solved a few issues we've had, most notably with the 14th Avenue pump station and some of our automation computer programming. So what we did was we set it up to where we already have the $30,000 per year budgeted with LNS, and what he would do is he would offset that amount. LNS would not have to come over. It would be a situation where he could be on site, he could do work. If he needed to contact LNS to do, that they can plug in online. We still need them because they have the individual that's most familiar with that ignition software, and they built some of the screens that we have. So
Is LNS on a time and material?
LNS is on a time and material, so not to exceed 30, like we typically do.
Okay.
And they're just fine with it because they're scheduling wise, like on Friday, they could have taken them 3 days to schedule somebody to get over here, depending on where their people are at. I know we have somebody that's assigned to us, but he also has some other customers. So I think to their credit, they want to make sure the customers are taken care of. And so we just thought that this was a good opportunity for us to save money on our operations. Like I said, we can't afford to be down for any length of time. That's real money for us. So what we need to do with Mr. Fairchild, with FDS, is to approve a standard form agreement, or approve agreement with him. And what I did with this agreement is I set an amount of $7,000 to start, and that would come off of the 30. So
What did you mean when you said he would come up to speed at his own?
well, he's done
Cost.
his own teaching, so to speak. He's not charging us to learn some of the, he spent quite a bit of time
Okay.
learning our system. And one of the things I wanted him to do right off the bat was, is this something that you could be familiar with or can get familiar with? Is this something that you can handle? Because he didn't know. He didn't know what we had.
But you're saying start off at $7,000. I mean, do you have a gentleman's agreement, or what do you have with him so he's not charging us? Once he gets this contract, he could say, well, I had to come down here and figure this system out. That seems like it's a little bit of a gray area for me.
But he would put in the direct cost. When he gives me an estimate or a budget invoice, he would put on there what his direct costs are for that. I mean, you have to take some level of confidence that he's not going to do that, but
Yeah, I don't like the gray areas, because I know some of that knowledge could be expensive to learn.
Right.
And he's saying that now, and this is a $7,000 to start contract.
well, he's been doing this since about June.
I heard he was a good man. I heard he did a very good job, but the gray area there with that, him learning the system, I cringe on it a little bit.
Can we have Grant drop the contract or do the changes to?
Yeah, that's our standard form agreement. So that's something that we've already have in place, but I definitely want to make sure Grant is comfortable with that. He's not pressing us right now for the agreement, but, so that's not his contract, that's ours, that you actually see. And that's one that we actually pulled from our insurance company, the MML. We worked on getting a standard form agreement, so we didn't have to, start over every time we had to come up with, and we don't want to use somebody else's. We wanted to have our own. That at least.
I would like Grant to look at that.
Sure.
Give us your opinion.
And I, just for the council's information, I did take a look through it. I did talk to Ray a little bit about it beforehand, and he had conveyed the same information to me as well, that it was a contract from the MMLA. And there was a few things that I would like to maybe add in, maybe some extra protections or some different clarifications. Certainly not it doesn't look to be an overhaul whatsoever, but I did catch a few things I thought, maybe we could take a peek at it. And a little bit along the lines of Mark's comments as well, 4.2 kind of jumped out at me a little bit as far as final payment. But looking at the recommendation, I think the recommendation, if the council felt appropriate with it, it appears to be just a straightforward time and materials.
When do you think you would be able to have that completely looked at for us?
Well, I've got notes on it already, so a day or two.
I mean, by the next meeting, or?
That'd be fine, yeah. Like I said, I didn't see very many, it's more of just a personalization thing a little bit. I think the contract as a whole, coming from an organization that we belong to like that, it's a good basic contract.
Yeah, I think the contract is good, but that little bit of gray area, I think we need to cover that.
And I think that's appropriate, Mark.
And I believe, hasn't he already done a lot of, or not a lot, but some things for us down at the hydro?
Yeah, we had him look at, we were having communication problems with the 14th Avenue pump station. And so he took a look at that, and he actually solved some of the problems we were having up there.
What about down at the?
Well, he's been in there. I'm not quite sure if he's actually solved anything for us, but he's, he had to come up to speed, so he was working through with the hydro. He's worked with Chris on a couple of network. So he's a good intermediary between the networking side and the actual electrical, because he knows the switching and the electrical,
In all them panels.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
he's
what we
getting up to
need.
speed, yeah, absolutely, the PLC side of it.
What are you recommending, Grant, we do with it? Table it or put a motion in place with the contract adjustments that you make?
I mean, to some extent, it's up to council. I mean, looking at it, we've done time and materials before and leave it, in principle, the contract, as I indicated, does appear to be appropriate. It's just a few different, and I don't want to get into it publicly
Yeah,
as far as some of the
sure,
things I
yeah.
see that maybe we'd like to tweak a little bit. I think some of them are pretty straightforward, but I'd like to get clarified. It's kind of up to council and the council's preference, but,
Can we
you know, to
still
be
have
safe.
him work down there without this agreement?
Well, he has his insurances in place.
Okay.
That would be more of a legal question.
To be on the, so for full disclosure, it probably makes more sense just to table it for one meeting. So
Okay.
the council has the
Can he still
contract.
work on it? Because don't we need him down there to look at it?
Well, from a insurance coverage standpoint, he's covered. Now, I don't know if there's something else that would jump out, indemnifications or some other legal process. You know, that, again, Grant, you'd have to
I mean,
answer that question.
he'd be, it's like any other independent contractor, he's being contacted by us to do independent work. He's got his own LLC. I did check on, I did have a chance to pull it up on the Michigan Corporation's website. He does have a validly existing LLC as well, and the insurance certificate was attached. So at this point, he's simply an independent contractor.
Like anybody else?
Right.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if we table it.
I don't, if
I
rates
don't-
come, I don't see a big issue for it. It sounds like he's working with us a little bit. And he is insured, he has a valid LLC.
So you're saying table it till the next meeting, you'll look at the stuff and
Have it written
he
up
can
right.
still work down
Then
there?
you'd have the contract in front of you as well with some of these changes to formalize everything.
Any other questions or concerns? Otherwise, we'll move on to approval of the Oak Crest Golf Club sign license agreement.
Won't you have to have a vote on the tabling of it for the next meeting?
You need a motion, right, Ray, to table it?
You don't always need a motion to table, but you can. It's a formality. I mean, if you want to just motion and support it and then move forward.
I think we can do it by consensus, too.
Yeah, I don't think, it's mandatory.
Okay.
There's just a directive that can be done too. It's up to you.
Somebody wants to make a motion, we can. Otherwise, we can move on to Oak Crest Golf Club sign.
All right, this particular item was tabled at the last meeting, and it was specifically tabled to the next meeting, so we need to put it back on the agenda. There were two questions that were raised. One was the payment and financial side dealing with the club. That has not been answered yet. Tom has not been able to get back with me. I thought was something he was going to try and do this week. The second question was the question about the state and the billboard. I did get an answer today. I did not have it on Friday, but I did get an answer today, phone call, that they said that because the property is owned by the city, it doesn't matter that there's a leasee, club. The property is owned by the city, the clubhouse is owned by the city, and the park is owned by the city, so it's all contiguous. So as long as it's contiguous, they do not refer to that as a billboard, and that it falls back on local zoning. Our local zoning is fine. So it really comes down to my discussion with Tom than in the club. So not a better answer for you tonight, other than, we should move it on till the next meeting so I get a chance to meet with him and find out what the club wanted to do.
So we're going to table that till the next meeting as well? By consensus. Anybody in the audience like to address the council on any issue? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Jean Bradford, 2465 Travis Farm Road. On the 15th of August at that council meeting, I brought up the possibility of doing away with the administrative fee when we pay our property taxes I asked the council to consider that. Is there any input that you can give me?
I think it's been discussed by the council in general. No decision has been made. In general, all the local governments in the area charge the same thing, 1%.
So,
Not everybody. I think one was 0.5%, and some didn't. One group didn't charge anything. Anybody in the council have any thoughts on this? I think it's generally fairly uniform charge throughout the area.
and the reason?
Mr. Anderson.
Well, to be blunt about it, I mean, the state has cut back so far on public funds, on the revenue sharing, that, you know, we had to at one point look at all of our permits, fees, and this was a very common practice, and the council looked at it and said, let's add this, because it's $24,000 a year that goes in the general fund, you know, for revenues. So, I mean, if you take away revenues from one place, we've cut back on expenses, but we still have to look at balancing the budget.
So did I understand you to say that you collect $24,000 administrative fees for the property owners here in
Right.
the city of Norway?
Rather than raise taxes. Right.
But that was a fee, $24,000?
Well, that's how much is raised off that 1% admin fee. That's what goes into our general fund budget.
And that stays within the city of Norway?
Yes. Because that's, you know, that's handling all the receipts of taxes for all the other taxing districts. You know, we collect all of those fees and have to deal with that, so.
So there is no possibility of doing away with that, is the answer?
Well, there's always that possibility, but then to balance the budget, we might have to raise the taxes, is what he was saying. You have to come up with enough money to run the government. Right now, a lot of our comes from the fees from the
Well, I just feel like when you pay
utilities.
premium taxes, plus having to pay a service charge to pay those taxes, which in my case was right around $50,
I think it's related to the distribution of the taxes we collect for everybody and then distribute the money. And it probably would be more fair to charge a specific amount for each bill that we send out, but then you'd have people with small properties paying just as much as people with big properties, and it would become overwhelming for them. So in general, the taxing units in the area all charge 1%.
And then I just have a question about this discussion on number 10, where you're talking about this software and this individual that's working, evidently he's working on a part-time basis. I didn't catch the company.
FDS Engineering out of Iron Mountain. FDS out of Iron Mountain.
And how long have they been in business?
Oh, a number of years, I don't know exactly.
That was flowers.
And then a final question. In the last meeting I was at, they did a DNR presentation about the Menominee trails. At that time, Mr. Anderson, like maybe a year or so ago, you said that Norway owned property in Wisconsin along the Menominee River. Why was it that they did not want that property?
Well, the Wisconsin DNR does want to buy the property. The Michigan DNR, we have 4.5 acres on the Michigan side, and the Michigan DNR said that due to their land purchase restrictions, they are not able to buy the property. So,
But is Wisconsin buying the property that
Wisconsin,
Norway owns?
yes, Wisconsin is interested in putting an offer in to buy the city-owned property in Wisconsin. There's 40 acres up by the Pierce Gorge, and then there's over 400 acres down on the Wisconsin side across from the dam. And they're very interested in buying that.
That Norway owns.
Correct.
So that is still a possibility that they will buy
Yes.
that property.
Yes, that's a very big possibility, but they have not sent me any information as to start that discussion.
Because I thought when the girls did the orientation, that they were not interested.
Well, that was the young lady that was representing the Michigan DNR, speaking specifically on the Michigan issue.
All right.
There still is a possibility that we could trade those 4 acres for other land, so we would not be able to sell that particular land to Michigan because of their restrictions, but we might be able to trade. And there is city land within the boundaries there is state land within the boundaries of the city of Norway. So that's always a possibility.
My personal opinion is I don't believe Norway should be in the real estate business.
Well, we're selling land.
Well, I don't know what land has sold, but I applaud you if you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brandon Hudson, live at 1908 Summit Road. The little water incident this weekend and stuff like that, how many gallons of water did you guys lose there?
I don't have the number from David.
Do you know where it went?
Yeah, I heard.
Went right down Lonnie's driveway?
Yeah, I heard.
Well, Lonnie just dug a ditch, and now he reverted all the water, if it's to happen again, to my property.
Okay, you didn't contact me though.
Huh?
You didn't contact me though. What's happening is...
I just came home on Sunday. This is
Okay,
what
all right. Well, what we need to do with Lonnie is he cannot just divert it and put it on someone else's property. So we need to get with him, and that ditch has to be reworked because he cannot put it on your property.
You didn't tell him you were gonna give him culverts?
I didn't tell him anything.
Because that's what he told me on Sunday.
Oh, that's
Did you update the council?
The water tank behind my
right.
house there.
We didn't have a
Because of,
conversation about that.
Electronics and software down, it opened up the tank and water came out.
Really?
And the water comes down right where Lonnie bought the property and right down the trail that
That's the one with Joe
the
Lefebvre.
water takes.
He's the
He made his road, that road, that.
Yeah, I was not aware of the discharge, and he can't just divert it onto somebody else's property. And I don't know where he's coming up with the conversation about culverts. So that's just a
why I'm
conversation we're gonna have to have.
That's what I just wanted to know, to see if you guys were giving him culverts, because that's what he told me you were gonna do. Somebody.
He didn't have that conversation with me, so I'll have to go and meet up with him and find out what the heck's going on over there.
Ray, were you informed of the water coming
No,
out?
no,
You
I didn't
didn't
know
know
about it
nothing
until,
about
you came in late this afternoon and, you talked to Trish, I believe.
He didn't come in, his wife called.
Oh, his wife called? Okay.
Oh, just to find out.
Right, and I
You
didn't know any
about the
about
water?
that.
You didn't even know that tank opened or anything?
No, I knew we had a problem with we had a meter that was blowing right off the wall, as we had a lightning strike. So I know we had some issues at the well site, but I wasn't aware of this.
So then it took Lonnie a day or two or whatever to try to find somebody to shut that water off, because it was just coming out, and like I said, it was, how many years ago was that when that happened again, and it flooded the whole road?
Why
Well,
is it taking a day or two to get?
I think what happened, now I'm just speculating, all right? But I think, when you have communications between the tank and the well site, I'm thinking what happened was they had a problem at the well site, which they corrected on Friday, but they may not have been aware of the communication with the tank. There could have been a problem right at the tank. I'll have to talk to Dave to find out exactly about that, but that might be.
Why would it take a day or two?
Well, they might not have known about it, and then we got
Because
noticed.
the software issue was.
Oh.
Well, what did you say, that he was trying to get a hold of him for a day or two and he couldn't get a hold of
He
anybody?
was trying to, and I don't know when, because I was gone all weekend, I didn't know what day it started flowing,
And I don't
he said
know
it
what-
took- He said, once again, he said it took him over a day to
Yeah,
tell
let me-
somebody from the city.
Let me find out from
he was
Lonnie
gonna
what
water
happened.
in his driveway.
I would be curious to see what the maximum amount of water that could be dumped out of that tank if this was a problem. What's the maximum
Well,
amount? I would be curious to see.
What happens is you have a flow control in the tank, and when it gets to a certain elevation, the flow, it stops the pump. So if the communications is bad, the pumps don't realize that it needs to stop pumping, so that it just keeps pumping, and then it goes in the overflow, which is what happened.
5 years ago, when I came home from work one day, right behind Joe Apcorn's house there, that whole road was flooded. That whole thing was flooded, so all that water was on for a long time to reach all the way down to that clearing in that field. It was all ice.
But I mean, I would be curious to see, I mean, if that float sticks and the software goes bad, does it empty the whole tank?
No.
Or does it only,
Just
or does
the
it
overflow.
only drop?
It just
or does-
overflows, it just keeps filling.
Tank doesn't dump water, that's kind of.
It just keeps filling, just keeps filling the
Just
tank.
keeps filling, it'll just keep filling.
Whatever the pump rate is.
That's what's gonna come out. Sure, okay.
Like I said, let me find out from Lonnie. I don't know why it would take him a day to get a hold of somebody. I mean, if he called dispatch, they would have got somebody right away. I mean, I'm on that list, so I mean, if they didn't get somebody, I'd be going over there, so.
He told me you were getting culverts too, so maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know, let me find out.
Ray, I know David was out Saturday and Sunday, he said that today,
Yeah,
and I know Jim Briner, he called Jim Briner to help him with something, I don't know if it was Saturday or
so
Sunday.
that's a communications issue.
Right.
And the meter blew.
He was
That
outside
happened
and I
on
went
Friday.
down to the
That
well
happened.
site because I seen him going
Yeah.
down the bulkhead.
Well, I'll find out and I'll let everybody know.
So we'll try to get a report out to the council.
I
I know what actually happened.
I won't wait till the next meeting. If I get this, I'll get a hold of everybody and let you know.
Anybody else like to address the council on any issue? No, council comments, Mr. Pop, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I have none.
Ms. Brew?
No, I don't have any.
Mr. Bubbalini?
I got a couple, Doc. I would like to talk about the cameras. I got some of the reports from Trish, and I got the reports from Jim, the police chief. And from what I got out of Jim, and I believe I talked to Ray, right, Ray? I came in
times.
a few times, okay. I came in by Ray, and basically I was told that the cameras were being put into place for vandalism. I looked through the reports, there is very minimal that the camera that were listed, like Marion Park, the Pocket Park, there's a couple that might have did something, like down at the well site where the gate got damaged. There wasn't a lot of damage. And I was told that it was basically for the damage to protect our assets. I really would like to see us deal with this tonight. I think that the cost of it being, we took one of the members from the golf course over to the Parks and Recs. I know it's a balancing act for the funding. I believe some of it was coming out of the majority of it was coming out of the Parks and Recs for his wage. And I would really like to see us just change the hydro cameras that we need to change for clarity and put a hold on the rest of these cameras.
I thought we were going to do this the next meeting.
Well, it was stated when we were at the last meeting that we were going to handle it tonight. And the only reason why we're not handling it tonight was Mr. Godstein wasn't going to be here. And I think we need to put this to bed. I would like to see it get put to bed, one way or another.
I don't remember it quite that way. It was just tabled, period.
It was tabled to
Not-
the next meeting.
No, I don't believe that's right, Mark. It was just, if you look at my motion, I think you'll see where it was just tabled. I don't think it said tabled to the next meeting.
Should be in the minutes.
Yeah, it should be in the
We looked at that because I wanted to make sure if it was said table to the next meeting that we would have it on the agenda, but it wasn't. So that's why we put it off to allow Mr. Godstein to come in and answer the technical questions for everybody.
And there's a few things that have arisen since then, too, which need answering. Let me find
I don't think we need to rush to judgment on anything. You
Well,
know,
I don't believe
it
it's
often
rushing.
means we're not spending any money in the meantime.
I don't believe it's rushing the judgment, and I would like to see it taken off and put to bed, because I don't think we should be spending that money right now. For the amount of police reports that were there, and it's to protect our assets. We have insurance at the park. There's very minimal damage anywhere other than the gate. Some of the reports were fire hydrant damage, and that would not be covered under the cameras anyway, because we're not putting cameras by all the fire hydrants.
Well,
I had also looked into it too, about this camera thing. You know, 'cause the big thing was just the expense. How come there was so much of a difference? And then I talked to Mr. Schaefer, or Mr. Menard. I talked to some other people too, and when I first heard about this cameras, I thought it was more for safety and not vandalism. Well, we're not gonna be able to have safety if we have the camera facing at these buildings, which I thought that's what the way it was gonna go. So more about it, Mark, I'm with you. I don't think we need to spend that money right now on, we don't have $10,000 like it was said on TV6 worth of damage.
And we
We were
also,
misled on that, and I don't believe we need.
That's not,
We need,
that's not true.
I don't think we need to
Scott.
spend the money on this camera system right now.
I'm not gonna let that pass. That's not true. And that's been a number of years. It's probably 5 or 6 years ago. We had over $10,000 damage just at Strawberry Lake. With the damages we had,
Over how many
That-
years?
well, it's been about 6 or 7 years ago, but we had the same problem. That's when we first started talking about putting up cameras to try and prosecute some of these issues. We had 3 benches on the main street that were destroyed. Those benches are at least $300 a piece.
And do you have a camera that's gonna be sitting over those benches?
We had the cameras that would have been at the Pocket Park, would have been able to see the 3 individuals that we can't name right now but we know that there were 3 individuals walking on the street that night, and they came right through that area. We would have had a visual of those 3 individuals.
right
You know,
now,
so
we
that's what we're saying.
I think we have too many things going on right now, and I think we need to save this money if it's just on vandalism. If it was safety and other things that were involved with this, I'd be on board with this, but since it's just vandalism, and I don't see that, well, maybe we need to patrol a little bit more,
It's like,
but
like
I don't
said
think,
before.
Mark, you know, I'm with you on this.
But like I said before, I just want to make this clear. I was asked over 3 years ago to put this together, and it's taken a time and effort, you know, to put it together. We talked about it during budget hearing. It is totally up to you guys. I mean, I'm not emotionally invested in whether we do cameras or not, but I don't want to leave the impression that we just want to spend money. I was just doing something, and the police chief, myself, you know, a number of other staff members, we were just doing something that we were asked to do. So I
Well,
don't want to leave the impression
I
that we
guess
just
I
want to spend money.
appreciate you put the work into it and getting us the information, but we're struggling right now with maintaining some of our parks. We have a walking trail that is probably used the most in Dickinson County around Strawberry Lake. The south side of that trail is going away, and it's going away quick. And we don't have the money to fix that. We took this wage, and we got that coming out of the Parks and Recs. Now the cameras, and I seriously think we should put a hold on it. Tonight, we tabled 3 items to the next meeting. And plus, we have the zoning board, or not the zone, yeah, the Norway zoning along with Norway Township, big thick packet that we're gonna be discussing at the next couple meetings. I think we need to put it to bed, and with that being said, I make a motion.
Well, I'd like to finish the
Okay,
discussion on it.
go ahead, Doc.
I've talked to people on the DDA, and they're investing a fair amount of money in the Pocket Park, including this Viking out there, and they don't want to put it up without some kind of security system. So, because it was quite expensive, and it would be very prone to vandalism. I'd also like to say that if you're interested in saving money, I'm not sure why you voted to spend $64,000 on one storm sewer.
Because the storm sewer has plagued us for probably 15 years over there.
Okay, well, I think there's been less expensive ways of dealing with it, but that's neither here nor there. That was passed, so.
Well, all this stuff that was approved during budget hearing, and I mean, you can change your mind. but I'd rather be proactive than reactive. And like Doc was saying, I'm afraid with Harold out there, whatever you want to call the Viking, that's going to get demolished or it's going to disappear in the middle of the night. And there should be something that we can do about that. And I also like the idea of the cameras on Strawberry Lake and Marion Park. I'm not saying we have to get all of them, but we can start. And like the compost pile out there, it was said at a council meeting or a budget meeting that, well, we don't need anybody out there because we're going to have a camera. Well, that we can hold off until there is a problem out there and we can throw a camera in there, and maybe some of these other cameras we can hold back. But I firmly believe we should get the networking in, which is 8,000 something, and maybe start off with half a dozen cameras, which is, what would be the cost roughly on that? That would chop that down quite a bit, and as problems arise, we can throw, if problems arise, we can throw more in, but I see nothing but trouble with that pocket park without any, some type of security down there with it.
I guess
Yeah,
I don't.
I see what you're saying on this, but when you talk about budgets, I didn't approve the budget. I voted against it. So
Not for that reason.
for multiple reasons.
And then I just would also say that I got, you know, the paperwork from Trish and the police department, and I had been contemplating this back and forth, and I mean, you know, maybe what Ray says is true, you know, maybe 5 years ago or whatever, we had $10,000 worth. I truly believe you, we probably did. But I also gotta look back at the last 16 months, which we got the paperwork from, and there isn't that much in this paperwork to convince me that we gotta spend that kind of money on cameras. To me, it goes back to, it's in the budget, whatever we approve the budget, but our utilities, everything else is going up. We gotta start saving money somewhere, and it can't keep getting put back at the people. That's the way I look at it.
Comes to priorities, and that's why we have 5 votes here.
I'm actually glad it got tabled so I could look more into it.
Well, I know we have a lot on the agenda next time, but I would still like to get us all the input into it. Again, I'm not really care one way or the other about the cameras. If the council doesn't want cameras, we don't need them. And I think there's a lot of outcry in the community. I don't understand why there's all the concern about it in the first place. We certainly wasted a lot more money than that, and some of it's going to be spent with electrical department money for the security that we need out there.
And there's no doubt that, I know because of FERC, we have to do something with the dam. And you know, you say, Mr. Hayes, well, we spent foolish money like that. That's the point. We've got to start looking at what we're spending money on. Even if it's approved in the budget, you can't raise the utilities 3 times in a year. And you got to start pulling back so that stuff doesn't happen. Even though I know we got projects going on, it's tough for people.
And you can't keep taking money out of the electric fund for everything. I know there's certain things that we need, and the electric fund is our main fund. But we got, like Candy said, we got to watch what we spend.
Well, again, most of the expense sounds like it's going to be spent at the hydro plant. Is that
No.
correct?
No.
On the cameras?
Well, in the whole system.
No, the networking part was, it was to put the main system in, and of course, we got to have different locations, but majority of it was to put that, to utilize the system we have, or the equipment we have, and then, put the networking in place so we can collect that data here. The electric was probably, well, I don't know, I don't have the paperwork in front of me on the total amount, but it was broken down by areas.
The networking was, I think, $8,400.
The networking was, but I even broke the networking down into functional areas.
Because what should be done is the networking should be divided by the amount of cameras that you're putting in, and those cameras should all be attached in equal value of the networking. You can't push the networking down at the hydro just because they have the most money.
No. What we did was, we looked at what the physical work was in each one of these areas, and if you look back at the bid tab, I mean, it does show the specific areas. So it is somewhat broken down by where.
But you also
where
have to have
going.
internet capabilities, and I mean, you're putting internet capabilities.
We have fiber at the hydro.
Yeah, but you don't have it at the gate down at
No.
the water?
Yeah, we do. We have fiber at the well site, we have fiber at.
But you have to run out to the gate. The gate's not right on top of the building.
No, but we can connect, that's easily connected to the fiber that we have. I mean, that's,
Well, I guess I'd like to make a motion, we take care of the hydro cameras with updating just the cameras themselves and scrap the rest of the idea for now.
That's without the networking.
Scrap, no, not the networking, just use the system we have down there and upgrade the cameras themselves.
Support.
Clarify that motion. I don't know if scrapping is.
No.
Yeah.
Well, holding off on the cameras, the rest of the cameras, just putting in the cameras at the hydro, updating just the cameras for the clarity.
well, we have, just to be clear, I mean, you're gonna have to have a network system, some kind of a head-end system. If we keep the head end down at the, you can't just put a camera, you're gonna have to have something to collect to.
From what
So-
from what I asked you last time, you said we had the collection down at the hydro already, that it was clarity
No,
of
that-
the cameras. That's what you told me last time.
No, that system down at the hydro failed, and that's why we're upgrading it. Okay, so what we can do is put a standalone system at the hydro, but I have to see if that part of that networking will be part of that standalone system. I mean, if you want to make a motion and say that you know, we'll move forward with a system for the hydro based on those quotes, I mean, that would probably be appropriate, but just to say the cameras only, I mean, we're gonna need to have part of that system.
Probably get bids for cameras down at the hydro.
Well, we might have to scrap it and just start over.
Maybe that's what we gotta do
Use
then.
that word, but.
Well, I mean, one of my concerns, like, this is it's an agenda item from the last time that was tabled and now not on the agenda. And you guys are, I mean, I understand where the council is going with this and trying to move things forward, but you're opening up all kinds of other worms and I guess with
I
Ray's
think,
concern.
I would like to see us make a definite decision, but I think we should get all the information, and there's no rush to make a motion and pass it. I don't see because we're not spending any money without a motion anyways.
Well, I guess I want to see, I made the motion, I would like to see the motion that we deal with the hydro, we get a cost estimate on what needs to be done just at the hydro.
Well, what if the DDA wants the camera on their Viking, and they really don't want to put it up? I mean,
They can do it.
and is that going to be compatible with the system? I think we should get all the answers. I don't understand why you're rushed
I
to
think the DDA
make a
would.
motion and vote on this.
I think the DDA would pay for the system that goes in a pocket part. Not, then you might want to consider having it, you know, come back to the city hall, and then you're saving on, you know, they might pick up a portion of the cost for storage as opposed to us paying 100% for the storage at the hydro.
Does anybody know what the salt is going to do to that statue? Because you look at the side of the old Maxine's Bridal Shop, you look at the side of Mike's Furniture, you look at the side of Talon's, the salt in the air and the moisture in the air is going to eat that thing alive.
Well, that is a decision I guess the DDA
That's a
has to
DDA
deal
decision.
with. But, you know, this is a camera issue, so, you know, I guess,
Well, I guess
maybe you should ask a question as, you might be able to cut, you know, the city might be able to cut its cost, at least the electric department, on the storage area and the networking side, if, you know, we're able to work together with the DDA for those two areas.
I want to see the separate price on just the hydro, and if the DDA wants to do their thing up here,
Well,
then they talk
Why don't
about
we
it.
get all that information and then make the motion? It seems like you're too quick to want to do something because it's in the public eye. I think we got to get all the facts on this first and find out what's going to be covered and what isn't going to be covered and what we need to do. And I'm certainly not anxious to spend any money on cameras that aren't wanted or aren't needed. But I don't know why you're so quick to make a motion and you're not quite sure what we're making the motion for.
I know what the motion is, I know what the motion that I want is.
Right, you want to scrap it, but
I want to do just the hydro, whatever we need to do for the FERC request, that's what I want to do. And I think we need a bid just on that. What were you gonna say, Grant?
I was just gonna say before we get too much further into it, because you were certainly mentioning about motions again, there's currently on the floor a motion made by Mark and a second by
Yeah, you
Scott.
have to go through.
We gotta
So
deal with that.
before we get further, if you wanted to either clarify or Mark make a motion to rescind, or make an indication to rescind your prior motion, but right now you have a motion and a second.
Let me,
that needs to be addressed.
let me maybe provide some language for the motion, because I know what you're asking, Mark. Why don't we just say the motion is to move forward with a camera system at the hydro, period.
Is that what you're requesting? It sounds like
I
that's
mean,
what you want.
you
Well,
want a
I'd
camera,
like to,
'cause
I'd like to see, I'd like to see a price, make a motion, I'd like to see the motion say that we're getting a price then, because I don't want it to get
Okay.
crazy on the price, because I know what you told me last time. You said
So
we
you-
had the recording stuff in place down there when I specifically asked you that.
Okay, so your motion is to get a price for camera system at the hydro, to get bids.
Yes.
Okay, that's your bid. Okay,
That's
that's
my motion.
understandable, and that makes much more sense than the previous motion.
Does he have to rescind that previous motion now?
I think,
As long as.
Just
as long
rescind
as-
it, just
as
take
long
it
as
back.
you both agree, because you motioned and you seconded.
I take it back. Take it back.
Yeah, take it back.
you're rescinding the previous motion, replacing it with the amended motion that you've indicated, Mark.
And not go ahead with
And
the other
so the
ones?
motion is that you want to just get a price,
On just the hydro and hold off on the other
or you
project.
want to get a price on.
Just the hydro.
And if
Right,
this is the
just
price,
hydro.
right, okay.
Right.
And hold off on the other project?
And hold up on the other
Well, we're not-
cameras. That's all I want.
You don't need a motion to hold up on anything that never made a motion to
Okay.
proceed on, so that's what was my point.
Okay,
So just to get a price on the camera system at the hydro,
that's right, Grant? That's perfect.
okay.
A second.
We'll have a roll call on that.
I don't know whose name I'm on.
That doesn't make any difference.
It does to some. Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
I have no problem with that motion, yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Any other comments?
So Ray, do we have to bring back the camera system that we tabled at the last meeting?
Well, we can still bring it back at the next meeting.
I'm
We're just gonna get some pricing for cameras at the hydro.
So we don't have to bring back any more?
Well, yeah, you still want to bring it back because that, I mean,
Can I ask you a question, or is it out of order?
You're out of order, you gotta wait.
sure.
Well, since I'm on the DDEA too, I guess it's not clear to me, I guess, where this whole thing is at with being able to put a camera anywhere you want. Are we capable of going and putting a camera tomorrow somewhere, if everybody agrees there should be one, and we have the capability of seeing that, or getting the feed from it? No?
No.
No, we're not.
Well,
We can put a deer-
anything that we do, including purchase of a system just for the hydro, is going to take another motion. You know, as far as I'm concerned, nothing is settled yet.
I was just kind of thinking ahead, because I kind of like Lee's idea of maybe pick a couple key spots, and whether the DDA was willing to pay for the one over here or not, and not put cameras out everywhere that you thought you might want to, and try to keep the cost down. But my understanding from what you just said is you can't even do that yet, because you're not capable of, let's just say everybody agrees you should put out two.
Well, that's why I wanted Chris here.
It's done.
That's why I wanted Chris here to explain, you know, when we put this together.
You have none of them now.
Because there were a couple different requests that were made when we put the system together. One was that the data come back and we use our server system here at City Hall. And so the pictures actually come back, and then the police can go in and poll. If we have a problem, they go and poll, or they can review.
Is that what's being done now?
That's what we proposed, and then we had cameras set up in these different locations. So you had, on the networking side, you you set up those locations, and then you could put multiple cameras in those locations using that communication system. Now, you could put,
What I'm confused about is I'm hearing it was proposed, and then I'm hearing we did it. And I don't know which it is.
no, well, the old system that was down at the hydro had, it was fed into a computer in the control room. And that system has, I mean, it's quite old. Okay, it's quite old, but we could utilize, we could possibly utilize the computer that's there. I don't know the answer to that. I have to go back and I have to get the pricing, you know. Same with the DDA. I mean, they could come up with a system that, from there, that is kind of standalone.
Exactly after. I'm still
Yeah.
confused, because I hear people saying they looked at video stuff, and they didn't see any stuff happening. That tells me cameras are out, they're feeding somewhere.
Police reports,
Police reports.
police
Not
reports.
camera reports,
No.
just police reports. So there are no cameras out there right now doing anything.
Don't we have one down at the wastewater plant?
Yeah.
And we
Well, the wastewater,
And we
did,
got the hydro has
That's just, but that's just
Standalone.
the fact that
Hydro's not
the
working.
whole central system that you were thinking about doing, for all these cameras, wherever you want to put them, and feedback in one place. You haven't done
That's what we're talking about. No, that hasn't been done.
Okay.
And hopefully at next meeting, Mr. Gotstein will explain the system.
Because that is a separate cost, just setting it up, let alone the cameras.
Right, and so we're getting a pricing now, just for the hydro. Any other questions?
No.
Mr. Manzini?
I got a couple items. I can see the headlines tomorrow, camera controversy in the Daily News. Now on the upside, I would like to give a special congratulations to Dennis Lynch. He was on Channel 6 today on People Who Make a Difference.
Oh, really?
He's the man of the week or the man of the month, I'm not sure, but I believe part of it is people that give back to the community. I believe that's the first one from Norway. If there was somebody else, I don't remember it. But again, a big congratulations to Dennis Lynch, who's done a wonderful job giving back to the community.
He sure has.
That's all I have.
I had a couple of questions. One, I see the fire truck financing is greater than 4%. I didn't want to bring that up, but is there any way we can get that refinanced at a lower rate?
We can ask, that's an RD loan, we can check and see what they say.
Since the rates are now lower than 4%, or it was 4.3 or
Like,
something.
I think it's like almost 4 3/4 that we're paying on that now.
Yeah, so if we can get it at a lower rate, I don't see why we don't ask. And I'd like to ask, is there any news from the DNR on the bat caves or fencing or building? It's my understanding that our mine inspector is threatening private citizens. Where can we go?
Is he threatening you again, Doc?
No, he didn't threaten me. The mine inspector has never threatened me.
How deep?
I don't own any pets.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned at this point, I don't believe the city has spent any more money following its tail trying to fence off property that may or not be ours, but at this point, I don't have any further updates.
No news from the DNR then on where we can build and where people can build and.
No.
Did we make a final decision then on the roads? I talked to you in August and you said that we don't have to make our final decision until the second week in September. And I presume that we're going to proceed with the plan as scheduled. Has anyone had any thoughts about widening the roads, and putting a striping on the edge then?
Yeah, we talked about at our kickoff meeting with the contractor about the possibility of widening the roads up and adding paint. I don't have a number yet on painting number, for adding the stripes. So they're not gonna mobilize now for another couple weeks. First or second week of October. So I've just gotta work with the engineer to get that number back.
Are we going to have enough volume on the run from 16th Avenue, 14th Avenue over to the spring to get assistance from the state ever?
Well, I don't know if I don't think we made our traffic counts we had to put the traffic counter out, and, you know, we have to submit that. And right now, it doesn't look like we made the traffic count number. So there may not be a chance for them, they may not give it to us. I'll still apply, you know, but we had to get to a certain traffic count number.
So we're not, it doesn't look like we're gonna get to that.
It doesn't look like they're initially gonna give us that, so.
Because you also made the comment that the second portion of Fernie Lane was in bad shape and that
Yeah.
we should consider putting that in. I figured, well, we could
Well-
switch to all of Fernie Lane and if we were gonna get the traffic counts, but if we're not gonna get the traffic counts, well, there's no point
No,
in delaying.
I don't think so. I mean, I think my comment was that in out years, you know, next year, the year after, when you move forward with additional lengths, that you should consider finishing, you know, that section is one of the priorities, but.
Right, okay. Anybody else, have any comments or questions?
Nope, I don't.
Thank you, Doc. No.
I know the young ladies never seem to ask any questions.
The only other thing, I just thought of something, Ray, that Hanbury Lake deal, I seen on your minutes that you thought that maybe we should hold off on the beach area for this year?
Yeah, it all depends, you know, it's basically come down to schedule. Next spring might be a better time to actually get that done.
Are we gonna have to put that out on bids again, or whatever we did?
No, we didn't actually put it out on bids. We were trying to find out if we could get a piece of equipment. We were trying to keep the costs down and look for options.
With that, we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.